Hey guys, welcome back to the workbench. Dan here as always, and in this video we're going to be doing another covered hopper weathering video. This one is one I've been saving for a little while, and thanks to this lovely COVID-19 shutdown pretty much that we have, everyone's quarantined, everyone's in the house, everyone's got a lot more time on their hands. I for one am still working, however I had a couple more days off, so I have more time to work on more complex projects, which is nice and great for you guys because now I can work on more video material. So the project that we're going to be working on today is a Magor 4750 covered hopper. It is going to be decorated for Cargill Salt. It is CLSX 501, and the model that we're going to be working on is an exact drill model. Now this car in particular is very complex in that it has some very unique patching and painting, and I want to take you guys over to our prototype photos on my desktop computer here so we can look at what kind of project that we're going to be working on. Here is the prototype car that I want to model. This is CLSX 501. Again, this is a Magor 4750 covered hopper, as I stated. This car is pictured here as it looked basically in 2007. And the reason this car is so unique and why I really love it is because it's a heavily patched car, which are some of my favorite prototypes. They're rare, oddball cars that roll around where some of them are partially repainted, and in this case they did several partial repaints on this particular prototype to cover up graffiti over time. There's old logo patch outs above, as you can see. There's multiple data patch outs, and then at one point in time they did some repairs here and there, and then at another point in time the car got graffiti and they patched over all the graffiti at the bottom, and then later on it got renumbered and then got renumbered again, creating all of these various odd looking patch out areas on this particular prototype. It's a real oddball. It's one that it's really cool. And again, to mention, Exact Drill actually did make a model of this car, but they're almost impossible to find. I've been trying to track down one of these for years and I've never found one. The only one I did see that went up on eBay a long time ago was actually weathered, unfortunately, so I couldn't really do anything with it. So I'm going to have to resort to making this from scratch using another Exact Drill 4750 covered hopper that I've stripped down. But again, note all of these patches and everything. Now, here's the issue. This photo was taken in 2007. By now this car has either been repainted or it's just been completely rusted over because these carry salt, and all this would have been rotted away pretty well by now. Plus, there's all this graffiti now. The patches have been changed to its original look, so it doesn't, and I'm sure it doesn't really look like this even anymore today, and I'm sure it's a lot more weathered up. So I want to actually model this car when it was freshly patched, and this is where I'm going to turn things around a little bit into modeling it in a different perspective. So let's go ahead and look at some other photos. Now this is the stock Exact Drill car as it was offered in this unique patch out. And the great thing that the Exact Drill did here was that they really did a nice job replicating all of the artwork and patching on this car. And they have the original car body color, which is helpful because obviously the prototype is rusted up. We can't tell what original color it was. And then you can see some of the areas where the patching, what it basically looked like before it got patched up again with the number there and all of the data. All this got changed as of that other prototype photo that I showed you. What I want to replicate with my model is the factory appearance of how they did the patchwork on their model, the way Exact Drill did it. I know it's kind of weird, but this is what the car I want to model will look like, basically. I will be doing some weathering on the side, but I'm basically backdating this. It's kind of an odd, I wouldn't normally do this kind of thing, but I just love the look of this patch job so much that I want to basically model a backdated version of this car as it maybe would have appeared when it was originally patched in 2006. So I'm going to be modeling the car based on how the model looks rather than how the prototype looks currently. Kind of weird, huh? Just to keep things moving real briefly, we'll look at the opposite side of the car. Again, another reason I like this prototype is the patching is so much different between the sides. And they replicated the artwork again on this car using their prototype photos they had at the time. And you can see there's all kinds of different patches, different colored CLSX reporting mark patching there, new number. There's the old logo patching, some repairs in the corner, and some difference in data and everything. Safety stripe placement is different on this side as well. The ends are all different as well too. I have prototype photos to cover that, but it's a very odd, unique patch job, and as you can tell, I'm a sucker for these kinds of weird patch jobs on these old cars. So this is what I want to replicate. Let's go ahead and take a look at the model now as our starting point. Here is the car that I'm going to be using to replicate the model of the CLSX 501. This is another Magor 4750 Exact Drill offered in the Conrail scheme. As you can see, I've taken and stripped off all of the lettering, data, everything. Everything's been completely stripped off this car, leaving only the light gray paint. Now, I can't use any of this original paint color, and just like the BN hopper we did previously, we're going to have to do some color filters to alter the car body color to get it to the right shade of gray, which in this case is a darker gray than what's on the model right now, which is a light gray. Got a note too, very nice detailing on these exact rail cars. This will look really well, really good when it's done. It's just got tons of really good detail, so I look forward to getting started on this. But the first step here is to just go ahead and we're going to go ahead and start putting a filter on the car sides, and I'll show that real quickly how I'm going to do that. Real quickly, we'll talk about that color transition, or otherwise known as a filter technique that I'm going to be using on these. A lot of times you can do this with brush. A lot of guys will actually do this with brush techniques, but I like to do this with an airbrush because it's quick and it's a lot more even. In this case, I need to make the car body color look exactly like it does in the photos. And the best way to do this is to do it with the airbrush. It'll get it done a lot quicker. The color I'm using is charcoal gray. As you can see here, this is just straight Anita's acrylic, just like I always use. In the little canister here, I have the paint. And take a look at this mixture here. Look how much paint is at the bottom of that little canister. And compare that with how much alcohol is in there. By the way, I'm using 71% isopropyl alcohol. Only use 71%. Don't go any higher than that. 90% is paint stripper. This will not work. You got to use 71%. It's very tame, but it's enough to dilute the paint down just to get it to where you need to go. But again, note how much paint is in that. We don't need that much. We're going to be doing a very light color filter here. So you only need a little bit of color. That actually might even need to be thinned out a little bit more. But basically, I like to mix this with an old brush. I use this like a paint stir. And we're going to be doing this very thin again. And I might do some test sprays on a scrap car or a piece of paper or a piece of styrene just to see where the color's at. But as you can see, the paint color here is very thin. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is start spraying this onto the car. Now you'll note that I actually have two models here that I'm working on. I got CLSX 1031. This is another car I'm doing to go with it. So I'm going to actually be spraying both of these, but this is the car I'm going to be working on that we're mainly working on for this video. So I'll go ahead and spray them off and I'll show you guys what they look like. 15 minutes later, and here's the car. Now finished with the airbrush work. You can see we've toned down that light gray and turned it into a dark gray very simply by using those color transitions. Now the important part is here, after you apply your paint coat, you get it to the color you need, stop. Don't keep going because you'll quickly turn it too dark and it's harder to correct that. In order to do that, you'd have to apply another filter of white to balance things back out, which is just more work. So I stopped a little before I got to the color, checked everything, let it dry. When I knew that I needed to apply a little bit more paint, I just double checked, sprayed a little bit more, in fact 2 more coats, stopped, and then I just went ahead and sealed everything up with dull coat. To show you guys just how much the color has changed, here's the under bay. You can see that gray spot where I cleaned it off. You can see how much the color has transitioned from that little spot right there. It's now a nice dark gray, and we got a good base to start our patchwork. For the next clip here, as you can see, while I still had the airbrush out, I just went ahead and sprayed some grime coat on my underbody, and that's just my normal mix of a little bit of earth brown and black, sprayed through the airbrush with a little rubbing alcohol, and that gets me a good base grime coat so that there's not so much area I gotta cover up with the oils and acrylics later on. That'll help me out. I also primed up the ends a little bit. Since there's not really too much going on the ends, I just put the basic kick-up lines on both ends, and that's where we're at currently. Again, we got the gray color to exactly where we need it, and if we compare it to the model on our computer, it's pretty much dead on match. So we're in pretty good shape here. So obviously the big part here is going to be replicating the patches. What I'm actually going to do first, and I'll describe to you how I'm going to do this, because we got to do a lot here. If we look at the prototype, or the model again as it's portrayed with the specific patching, you'll notice that there's 3 different patch out colors. There's 2 different kinds of light gray, and then there's one kind of this tannish gray color here on the CLSX patch, for example, and then on the LT weight data patch here. And then you can see down here we also got some light grayish blue patches here as well, covering up some old diamond logos on the side of the car, and they're very roughly done. I want to try to replicate those as accurately as possible, and this is going to be a case where I'm going to have to brush paint those. And then of course we got the huge car body patch underneath, which is basically a whitish gray color, which I'm going to have to either airbrush or spray on. We'll get to that in a second. What I want to talk about though, I do want to replicate some car body weathering on this, but I want to keep the patches relatively clean. So my idea here is I'm going to going to basically try to do these two patches first because these are the original two patches that are on the car. So we're going to model these first before we do anything else. We're going to put those on. Then what I'm going to do is, my plan is to put those patches on, and then I'm going to put my grime coat over those patches. Okay? And then that'll weather those up and make them blend in. I'm not going to try to weather them too much. I still want them to look somewhat fresh, but just have a weathering coat over them since they are the oldest patches on the car. The next step will be to layer in the hand-painted patches, as you can see here, replicated on the model. And they vary between sides, as I mentioned. They're both different on both sides, and then they're going to be different on the ends too. There's also some of that on this end here, where they patched up some of the data, so I'm going to replicate that as well. The last thing that I'm going to do will be the final layer of masking that I'm going to do, where I'm going to actually spray the main white car body patch color on. I'm going to do that by spraying it, and I'm going to have to basically mask off the entire car side, which is going to be pretty tedious, but that should be a fun step when we get to it. Lots of work to do though, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started by making a color, and we'll start working on these patches here for both sides. Now, to create that patch color, I have taken 3 different colors of acrylic. I've taken some charcoal gray, some white, and a little bit of cobalt blue. I've mixed a custom color together here on my mixing paper to create the color that we need. Now, over here on the model, the patches are on these 2 larger open panels that do not have the center rib going down the middle. And I'm going to replicate these patches based on the prototype photos. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a basic outline, and I'm just trying to match up exactly where the patch is on the side of the car by doing a rough outline. And this is going to be kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see it there. I'm just painting a basic outline first, and then I'm just going to basically go back in and fill all this together. And I can keep reshaping the patch as I go until I get it to the right shape, and then I'll basically take a larger fan brush, or a liner brush in this case, and fill in the large area, and I'll try to keep it as smooth as possible so it doesn't look rough. Here are the grayish blue patches on the sides. I got that done, and I just copied that to the best of my ability with the prototype photos I had. Copied that on and painted them on. They look pretty good. So the next step is to do the yellow patching, which I'll pull up here. As we talked about, the car has some yellow patching where the reporting mark is, and then this little area where it was patched up too, and then they did the gray around that. And so I'm going to replicate that now, because my plan is to paint around that basically. All I can do with the brush, everything else I'll just spray. So I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that patching next. Okay guys, here's where we are now with the project. As you can see, we got the borders painted on, and this is just some buff painted acrylic. And I just basically brushed this on in light washes and built it up in progressive little layers until I got a nice even patchwork with basically no brush stroke. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for part 1 of this video series here. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube for more content if you haven't already, and follow my work on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook page is Dan's Custom Trains, and my Instagram is Danny Dankinson. That is all lowercase. And you can follow me there to see what kind of projects and what kind of work I'm doing for myself or for other people. I'm always posting pictures and videos on my sites, so be sure to follow me there as well. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next part, guys. Take it easy.